Under the guise of snap inspections and military drills, Russia has been amassing troops in Crimea and on the Ukrainian border, sparking fears of a Russian invasion and direct confrontation with the United States. On Thursday, Moscow claimed that it had begun the process of withdrawing troops from the Ukrainian border. But fears of a Russian invasion of Ukraine remain. Moscow's troop buildup is likely intended as a message to U.S. President Joe Biden and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's next move in Donbass. Zelensky, the Ukrainian comedian-turned-president, has been emboldened by Washington to stand up to Russia with U.S. support. The next flashpoint would likely be Donbass, and if the Ukrainians make a move on this territory, Putin will respond with decisive action. That is the message being sent by Russian troops on the border. In the meantime, Biden is narrowing in on corruption in Ukraine, even sanctioning oligarch Igor Kolomoisky, an important figure who financed paramilitaries to take on the Russians in Crimea. Biden's sentiment is that the best way to fight the Russians is to start by rooting out corruption in Ukraine, whether it's Russian or homegrown. The Biden administration views this as one of Ukraine's biggest vulnerabilities. On April 15th, the U.S. unleashed more sanctions on Russia, including new restrictions on the ability of U.S. financial institutions to deal in Russian sovereign debt. Washington imposed sanctions on key Russian economic institutions, including the central bank, the finance ministry, and the Sovereign Wealth Fund. An additional 40 individuals were also added to the sanctions list for everything from the 2014 annexation of Crimea and election interference to cyber attacks. Despite sanctions and Russian troops massing on the Ukrainian border, oil watchers will notice that one thing remains unchanged in the age of ultra-globalization: oil supplies. In fact, Russian oil supplies to the U.S. have hit a 10-year high, failing to reflect the growing political tensions. The latest data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration shows that as American refiners attempt to fill the gaps from sanctioned Venezuelan oil, Russian crude is flowing in. In January this year, Russian oil supplies totaled 8% of U.S. total oil imports, double what it was in 2018.